Thank you very much for joining us for this Faith Will information session. It's great to have you here. I'll introduce everyone in a moment. The hope is that by the end of our time together, you will understand what Faith Will is all about, and be inspired and enabled to help your members and supporters consider the positive impact that gifts and wills can have in both our local and global communities. I'm Pauline Wilson and I represent the Church of Scotland on the Faith Will Joint Working Group. It's a real pleasure to collaborate in this work with colleagues from Christian Aid, from the Church of England, Quakers in Britain, and the United Reformed Church. To speak with one voice on the place and impact of legacies within a faith context is really powerful. I'm pleased that we're going to have two other Faith Will partners with us today. I'm going to start with the Quakers. We have Beth Fellini here, and I'm going to invite Beth just to say a few words about what Faith Will is doing within Quakers. Thanks, Beth.
Yes, I'm Beth, and I work, I'm a Quaker myself. I go to Forest Hill Quaker meeting in South London, and I also work for the main Quaker church body, which is Quakers in Britain, or our old name is Britain Yearly Meeting, the Religious Society of Friends. And, we were very enthusiastic to get involved because we thought this is a great way to get our Quaker meetings, all the friends and everyone who goes to Quaker meetings talking about legacies and the power of legacy gifts for our faith, but also faith in the world, which Quakers are very passionate about putting our faith into action. So it's been great to be involved.
Thanks, Beth. We also have Helen Simkes here from the Church of England. I know Helen's just rushed in from another meeting, so it's really good to have you, Helen. What does Faith Will mean in the Church of England?
Thank you so much, Pauline. Sorry, I'm slightly late. For us, Faith Will is a fantastic opportunity to partner with an amazing organisation and to work ecumenically with other partners to spread the importance of the message that legacies are so valuable to our Church of England churches, but also to our global family. And we're really pleased to be working together because the power and knowledge and wisdom that all the other partners bring just help us to amplify the message that we've been trying to share for a long time. And we're much more strong together in sharing this because we're all trying to work for the same thing ultimately. So yeah, very pleased to be taking part in this.
Yeah, thanks, Helen. You make points I think that we would all agree with wholeheartedly. It's been a really good opportunity to work together and to learn from each other. Our key speakers for today come from Christian Aid. We have Liz Burrell. Liz is the Legacy Campaign Advisor, and Kathy Childress, who is Legacy Partnerships and Training Specialist. Before I hand over to Kathy and Liz, we'll bring this session before God in prayer. Shall we pray? Generous and gracious God, we thank you for this opportunity to meet in your name, to deal with the business of your kingdom, to seek to build up our communities, whether near or far, in a way which reflects your love and care. Be at the centre of our meeting, direct our thinking, and inspire us to help others to reflect on their faith legacy. Amen. So now it's over to Kathy and Liz. Thanks both.
Hi everyone. I'm going to start off and I'll be handing over to Liz a bit later on. It's good to be here. I'm just going to share my screen with you so I can share the presentation. Right. Hopefully you're seeing that one slide there. The reason we've gathered you here today really is to talk about how we might make it easier to talk about gifts in wills in churches. And we know this is something that churches struggle with and would love to do more with, but just perhaps don't always know where to start. So we created this campaign, Faith Will, to really make it easier for churches to have the tools that they need to kick these conversations off. Later on, Liz will be sharing with you much more about the campaign itself, but I'll be just laying some foundations at this stage about why legacies are so important and and the ways in which we may need to reframe our own thinking around them in order to really lay that groundwork to start these conversations. So first of all, why legacies? Why are we talking about legacies? Well, as you can see here on the slide, they are the unsung heroes. They're the backbone of support for so many charities and so many organisations, including churches. So just to say at this point that Christian Aid receives more than 1/3 of its direct fundraising income from gifts in wills. So we very much depend on them for our own work. So why not the church? Why should churches miss out on this amazing opportunity for support? And it's more than that. These gifts are transformational. The second point here on the slide is that this is a huge area for growth. And we know that this is set to grow over the next sort of 20, 30 years. And we know that because the baby boomer generation are gradually passing on their wealth to the next generation as they pass away. And the baby boomers are the wealthiest generation that we've seen. So as this big transfer of wealth is going to happen, are we going to be part of that? Are we going to ensure that we've taken steps to make people know that they can leave a gift to our church and to Christian Aid? Growth will happen, but will we be part of it? So lastly on the slide here, research indicates that Christians are more likely to consider leaving a charitable donation than those with no faith. It's that predisposition to think of charitable legacy giving, which is an inherently distinctive advantage in addressing our congregations on the subject. Now, what can these gifts enable us to do? Well, in our campaign, we're very much focused on the idea of local and global communities and tackling injustice in those communities and building lasting change. Now, whether we're looking locally or globally, there's a huge amount of need around us. And these gifts can really help us address some of that need, whether that's within our congregations or around us in our communities or across the world. Now, George Fox, the founder of the Quakers, coined this wonderful phrase, let our lives speak. I hope that's right, Beth. You'll correct me if I'm wrong. But this is a really lovely expression that talks about the way in which our lives can show our passions, our values, and the things that matter to us. And in the same way, our wills can do the same. They can serve as our voice and allow our values and our passions to speak out and to live on into the future. And lastly, these gifts are a way of paying forward the generosity that we've received from a generous God who we just prayed to just now. And just acknowledging that we have something that we can put on account for future generations, paying forward the gratitude that we have for God's generosity to us and acknowledging our own privileges and blessings. However, despite this all being true, currently only 1/3 of UK adults have actually written a will. And within that figure, only about 7% of wills will actually contain a charitable legacy. So you can see from these statistics that actually there's a hugely long way to go for all of us to really make gifts in wills more of a normal thing in our churches and in our charities. A long way to go. First of all, we've got to get people thinking about writing or updating their wills. People we know just don't get round to it. There's a lot of apathy. Often people know it's important, but it's difficult to take the step. And then added to that, there are lots of common misconceptions around the whole process and around the idea of gifts in wills that we really need to clear out of the way if we're going to make any progress. So let's think about the positive benefits for the donor or the person who's going to leave the gift. that gift is a real reflection of ourselves, of our own identities. And it's, in a way, up to us to reframe things and reframe them in our own minds and then reframe them in the minds of those around us, because these gifts genuinely tell others about the things that have mattered to us and the kind of people we are. Through this gift, we live on. We're remembered as someone who's left their mark. It's a kind of symbolic immortality. So this is a really positive thing to do because it enables us to really make our mark. But it also enables us to make a difference to future generations by helping our loved in life causes to continue their work and continue making a difference even after we're no longer here. Added to this is that wonderful peace of mind that we have, knowing we've expressed our wishes and knowing that they'll be faithfully carried out, which is a huge weight off of our shoulders. However, when we surveyed about 700 church leaders in 2021 in a huge piece of church research, these were the results that came back to us that showed us that, again, there's a long way to go. We found that only 24% of church leaders were actually talking about legacy giving in any capacity. Over half of them felt negatively around the subject, and 64%, sort of 2/3, hadn't done anything to promote gifts in wills. It wasn't that they weren't wanting to, it's often that they just didn't know where to begin. So in this same piece of research, we asked, what were those barriers? What were those specific barriers that came in the way of them asking for these gifts or starting those conversations? And this is the feedback that we received through that same survey. First of all, church leaders told us that these gifts are seen as special, and they are indeed special. They're somebody's final gift to your organisation. But sometimes they're seen as so special that they're almost unwanted because people don't quite know what to do with them when they come. There's often the worry about them being restricted because that would present us with administrative challenges. And some of you may even have had such a gift, where you've had a restricted gift and it's given you a real challenge about how you spend the money because perhaps you no longer are involved in that piece of work or you've moved on from those projects. So these are some of the things that people have told us. They've also told us that they've felt uncomfortable asking for money from their own church. They can ask for money for specific appeals and specific needs, but to ask for legacy gifts felt uncomfortable. Others hadn't thought about it, and some felt that this was awkward and inappropriate because it involved death and talking about death. And then finally, we were told that some people had had no advice from their denomination, so they just didn't know what to do. We do need to do a lot of myth busting here, don't we? There's a lot of misconceptions in people's minds. And some of those misconceptions might be in our minds too. So it might be worth our while just having a moment to think about these and perhaps, debunk some of the myths. Well, first of all, I think the biggest one, elephant in the room, is that it's all about death, doom and gloom, and somehow makes people feel quite miserable. Now, actually, we need to, again, reframe our thinking because we don't need to talk about death, actually. We are involved in legacy fundraising, Liz and myself, and it's probably the most positive form of fundraising around, because we're not asking people to respond to an emergency or a crisis or hear about how bad things are in the world. We're asking people to do something really amazing with the gifts that they've received from God, where generations to come will be impacted in a really positive and lasting way. So this is actually a really life-affirming thing to do. We don't need to mention death, as I've said, and we don't need to talk about leaving things behind. We can talk about living on and being remembered for making a difference. Reading across the screen there, some people are tripped up by the fact that this is a personal and a private thing between individuals and God, and perhaps it's distasteful to talk about. Well, yes, it is a personal decision, but from our experience at Christian Aid, we can say that Many of our pledgers are really happy to share their stories of why they've pledged, and they do so with great positivity and a big smile. So whilst there's no obligation to tell us about their gifts, many are very pleased to do so. And we love to hear their stories too. Of course, people don't need to talk about amounts or anything personal that they don't wish to share. I don't have much to leave. Now, I think this sometimes comes down to us using the word legacy, because actually that might imply that this is a grand gift with some kind of, very large amount, that it sounds very legal. So that's why more and more we're moving towards the term gifts in wills, because gifts in wills, everybody gives gifts. Gifts are all different shapes and sizes, big or small. And so it makes it much more accessible to people, I think, to talk about gifts in wills. And we really need to get the point across that this is not about large sums of money. This is about someone leaving a lasting memorial to their church membership and a gift to a charity that they dearly love. So having a large or a small amount, it all makes a difference. And we really need to communicate this very clearly. Then the last three, the complication, the complexity, the costliness, and the time-consuming nature. Perhaps I can just bundle those up together. Yes, I agree that in the past it has been perhaps more complicated and costly and time-consuming, but that's no longer the case. We now have amazing free will writing offers. I know that Christian Aid and the Church of England, for example, are partnered with Fair Will, which is an online will writing service, which really does make things so much easier. And you can actually write your will for free. There are many free will writing services available, not just Fair Will. There's the National Free Wills Network. There are many. There are Free Wills Months. There's Will Aid. So there are lots of options where people can get this done for free, and where it takes a lot less time and is a lot more less complicated. So just as an example, when I did my will in 2021 with Fair Will, it took 12 minutes and I just received it the following day, and it didn't cost me anything at all. So I really do believe in what I'm saying here, that we can debunk some of these myths. People give when they understand the need. And I think it's really important that we are communicating what our specific needs are as a church, as a community, as a charity. We need to ensure that they know what our vision of the future is. So have we shared with them what we want to achieve in the future? Have we talked about what remains to be achieved, either in our communities or globally? Have we made that clear? And next, people need to see the difference that they can make, that we're inviting them to be part of the transformation that we're longing to see. So we need to make people aware of the difference that their personal contribution can make in this process. And lastly, we need to build trust and ensure that people feel safe to give us that gift, knowing that we will spend their money wisely. So transparency, accountability about how we spend our money can be really helpful in building trust before people feel confident to leave us that final gift. It's an important foundation. So before Liz comes to talk to us about Faith Will itself, I'm just going to lay a bit more of a foundation here and say, why are we asking people to start these conversations? Well, first of all, we are saying it's a way of asking. Now, we know that churches up to now have perhaps been a bit more reluctant to ask, but if we're not asking, then others have been asking and will continue to fill that space. So our survey told us that 44% of churchgoers had been asked to give to a charity, but only 22% had been asked to leave a gift to their church. So these conversations are vital in bridging that gap. Next, we are able to thank people. Now, we can't thank people when they've passed away, when we receive the gifts. It's too late to thank people. So thanking people as part of this conversation is a genuine thank you to those in our congregations who may well be silent pledgers and have left us a gift. So this is the opportunity to say that thank you, which will also act as a prompt and a nudge to others who perhaps haven't thought about it or haven't got round to it. So this legacy moment will provide that opportunity to nudge and prompt people to act. It's really important that legacy messaging is frequently encountered. And the reason for that is it's not always the right moment for people. But as people have changes in their lives, maybe changes to health or wealth or family situations, then maybe the next time they hear about it is the right moment. And then your church or Christian Aid, or hopefully both, will be front of mind when they do think it's the right moment. So drip feeding the message is really important. And lastly, almost lastly, the drip feeding normalizes the conversation as well and takes away from it being mysterious or menacing or worrying, and it just gets rid of some of the myths by talking about it frequently. Lastly, we can show people how easy it is to do. So how accessible, how quick and how free the process can be. So it gives us an opportunity to do that. And talking about making things easy, I'm going to hand over now to Liz, who's going to tell us a little bit more about our campaign, Faith Will.
Thank you, Kathy. So this is the second year for our ecumenical campaign for legacy. It's the first of its kind, and there seemed to be great appetite for it last year, with 228 churches and 21 Church of England dioceses signing up to be involved. So why did we create it? Well, as we've seen, churches weren't talking about gifts in wills at all, and those that were finding it really difficult. And as Kathy said, our research from the sample of 700 church leaders showed that 64% have never talked about gifts in wills at church. So we wanted to make it easier to talk about, especially for those who hadn't yet gone into that conversation. And so from the gifts, the wills we received, we could see that in 2/3 of cases, people who left a gift to Christian Aid in their wills also left a gift to their church. And there's further good news that in these gifts to the church, they're the same or equal value to those for Christian Aid. So we knew that made us excellent partners to work with on legacy giving. And if you know Christian Aid well, you'll know that we've always used a partnership model way of working, by building relationships with partners and working together. We hadn't tried this in the legacy space before, but we decided to test it as we knew there's a great appetite for finding out more about legacy giving in our churches. And it's been so brilliant working with the partners in our campaign and coming together to start these conversations. So this is the campaign in a nutshell. Faith Will is a condensed form of the strapline we adopted, which is your faith is powerful and so is your will. It's a co-branded campaign, as you can see, since we're working in an ecumenical partnership for legacy with all three partners represented here today, and also the addition of the United Reformed Church, who joined us in the campaign this year. We're asking churches to sign up simply so that we can measure their level of engagement with the campaign, as well as offer support to those who've signed up. So it's a joint ask for gifts to both the local church and to Christian Aid. And please notice we're asking for people for consideration. It's a soft ask. There's nothing for individuals to sign or pledge on the spot. We're just asking people to consider whether this is something they may like to do. So I thought we'd watch together a 1-minute film that just tells you what Faith Will is about.
Gifts in wills are a powerful way for our faith to live on and create lasting change. They enable churches to flourish in our local communities and tackle injustice across the world through Christian Aid. That's why we're inviting you to take part in Faith Will. This autumn, churches and Quaker meetings across the UK are coming together with Christian Aid to make it easier to talk about gifts in wills. Simply sign up for your free Faith Will worship resources, including a service guide, short film, and ideas to inspire your congregation to consider a gift in their will to their church and Christian Aid. Imagine the change we can make by coming together to say, your faith is powerful, and so is your will. Join us.
So the campaign's based around the idea that as Christians, we belong to more than one family. We have our natural families, our church families, and our global families. We are interconnected and we belong to all three. Our own natural biological families are our first priority, along with friends and loved ones. The Bible underlines this too in this verse from Proverbs. And this campaign in no way wishes to detract from our primary responsibility and the duty of care we have for our families. But we also belong to a wider family, a church family. Our brothers and sisters in the family of God are dear to us. And as people who love our churches, we will want to ensure that they will be there for generations to come. We could leave a long-lasting contribution to our church family, as well as give back to those who've supported and encouraged us in good times and in bad. Leaving a gift in our wills reflects the gratitude we feel to God for our church. Furthermore, Jesus challenges us to love our neighbours, and not just those nearby, but also those far away, those whom we may never meet. The parable of the Good Samaritan shows us who our neighbours are, those in need, regardless of faith or ethnicity. We are all connected to one big human family made in the image of God, with the potential to have life in its fullness. What a wonderful way to make a lasting difference to those in need through a gift to your will, to Christian Aid, expressing your solidarity with those who live in some of the poorest communities, and ensuring those communities thrive long into the future. So, as mentioned, the sign-up process is the way for us to measure participation in the campaign. And once signed up, churches will be contacted by the local Christian Aid member who will support them. Churches will be offered a trained speaker to come and give a faithful talk at a church service. And the sign-up process gives you access to all the 3 resources we have available to help you plan and deliver a Faithwheel moment. We have some fantastic Faithwheel resources to inspire your congregations, all of which are free. So our worship resources come in this downloadable 32-page guide from which you can pick and mix. And they include sermon notes around 4 themes with small group questions to accompany them. The pack includes all-age service resources and suggestions for songs and prayers. There are also 2 sets of double-sided posters and leaflets for congregations to take away with further information about how to leave a gift, and also details of our free will services, which I'll show you in a moment. The congregational leaflets and posters are available to order as hard copies, and they're also downloadable. And there's also a 3-minute film for you to show your congregations, which we'll watch together shortly. So this is the back page of the congregational leaflet, and it signposts individuals who want to take the next steps to the relevant way that they can do that, whether through their own denominational networks or through Christian Aid. As Kathy mentioned, both Christian Aid and the Church of England are partnered with Fair Will, the online will writing service. And we've made it easy for people to connect with that service and offered the first 100 wills for free. But details for all partner websites are clearly signposted too in the leaflet. So if you don't have time for a full Faithwheel service, you could show our 3-minute film, and you could use this to show over coffee or at another event. You can access this in the same way as our other resources by signing up on our website, and then you receive a link to download the film. So let's watch that 3-minute congregational film together now.
The local church is so important in people's lives in general. It's a place they can come where they feel safe and connected with a community.
I think it is really important for us as the family of God in this place to remember our connections and our responsibilities to one another. So we think it's deeply embedded in our faith to be generous with the good gifts that God has given to us, not just to keep them to ourselves and to say thank you very much, God, but say thank you by sharing those with our broader family to which we all belong.
We live in a tiny, fragile, completely interrelated world. So gifts and wills can help bring justice and tackle inequality in our local communities and in our global communities. Faith communities coming together for Faith Will amplifies our voices, raises awareness, and we always do things so much better when we do them together.
Gifts and wills have made a significant difference to our church. We have a ministerial assistant employed here, and her job is paid for from a legacy from a long-standing member of the congregation. And it allows us to carry out better pastoral support work amongst our own congregation, but also enables us to do more outreach to our local communities.
I mean, it is important for us to be generous because it is an outpouring of our faith. Because our faith as Christians is for us to give. The same way God freely gave Jesus to us, so we are expected to freely give as well. So one way to show love for our neighbors is with our resources. And even our gifts is one way of doing that.
We've already been the beneficiary of a gift in a will, and we're really grateful for that, but we know there is always so much more that is needed and so much more that people might be able to do if they just spent a moment to think about where they might like their resources to go.
I have gained so much from the Religious Society of Friends. It's important for me that it sustains, and a legacy is one of the ways in which I can demonstrate that.
For me, I think giving a gift to Christian Aid through my will is important because it actually says something about me. It says something about the values that I had in my life. I would encourage other people to leave a gift because of the impact that they can make after they die. It's just a kind of a signing off.
Everybody leaves a mark of some kind. The legacy I hope to leave through my faith is gentle, kind, and justice-filled. That's the mark I hope to leave.
So I just want to finish with this quote from retired minister Roger Gaylor. It says, "Leaving a gift in my will to my church and to Christian Aid made sense to me because they complement each other. We're all working together to show God's love in our own communities and across the world." And I think that really underlines that the ask is really a complementary one and not a competing one.
I will say thank you so much to Kathy and to Liz for your wonderful presentation, and to Pauline for her organisation of today's session. I will close our session with a prayer of thanks that we use in the Church of England when we do any training on legacies and gifts and wills. Lord of all, we thank you for those who have walked before us in the way of Christ, those who have shared their faith and love with us, and those who have been generous benefactors of church, nation, and world by the lives they have lived, and the inheritance they have left to us who come after. Grant that we may be faithful stewards of all that you have entrusted to us, that all people may know your love and all creation come to share your glory. Amen.